You ever feel like the ground just drops out from under you? Like life is playing a cruel joke and you're the punchline? That's exactly how I felt the night my wife left me stranded in the parking lot of a casino in Reno, Nevada. No wallet, no phone, not even my shoes I'd been wearing all day. Cold, wet, humiliated. And then, out of the rain, stepped a tall, lean old man. One eye covered with a black patch, a cane in hand, and a voice that could slice through steel. He leaned close and whispered, "Son, pretend to know me. Trust me, your life is about to change." I didn't know then just how true that would be. My name's Harold Hal Pierce. I'm 70 years old, lifelong Nevadan, Vietnam-era mechanic turned small business owner. I've spent decades fixing trucks, tuning engines, scraping by with hard work and calloused hands. I married Lana 43 years ago. Thought we were partners, soulmates. Turns out, loyalty can be one-sided. That night started like any other. Lana suggested a weekend trip to the Silver Horseshoe Casino. She said it would be fun, though her fun usually meant spending my money and laughing at my discomfort. At first, I tried to enjoy myself. Played a few slot machines, lost $20, shrugged it off. But Lana, she had her eyes on the blackjack tables. 2 hours later, I walked up, and she wasn't alone. A man, sharp suit, slicked back gray hair, hand on her knee. "Hal, go wait somewhere," she snapped. Like I was some inconvenient afterthought. I followed her outside, hoping to talk, to reason. Rain was pouring, cold needles slicing my face. She opened my wallet, emptied it into her purse, took my credit cards, my ID, even my phone. "You'll figure it out," she said, and drove away, leaving me standing there, soaked, alone, 70 years old in my bones, feeling like every day I'd worked and every penny I'd saved had amounted to nothing. Minutes passed, maybe 10. Then a voice. "Son, you look like a man who's lost everything." I turned. He was tall, thin, leather coat, white hair, one eye covered with a black patch. Cane in hand, polished to a shine. "Who are you?" I asked, teeth chattering. "Monroe Ashford. Call me Patch. And if you want your life back, you need to pretend you're my son." I laughed, because who says something like that out loud? But his presence, it commanded attention. The way he looked at me, steady and piercing, made the rain feel like background noise. A black Lincoln Continental pulled up. Chauffeur got out, umbrella in hand. Monroe tapped my shoulder. "Stand tall. She's watching." And sure enough, under the casino awning, Lana stood there. Mouth open, eyes wide. Shocked. Inside the Lincoln, warmth and leather surrounded me. Monroe sat opposite me, that one sharp eye studying my face like a chess master sizing up a pawn. "Your wife treated you like trash," he said, calm but sharp. I shrugged. "You don't even know me. I know broken men. I know shame. And I know regret when it's fresh." He wasn't joking. I realized then he wasn't just rich. He was powerful, deliberate, and he had chosen me. "Where are we going?" I asked. "My estate outside Carson City. You need a meal, dry clothes, and time to think. After that, I'll make you an offer." And that was when it hit me. Monroe Ashford didn't just have money. He had a story, and he wanted me in it. While he drove, I thought back. 43 years married. I loved Lana with everything I had. We bought a modest house in Sparks, Nevada. Traveled a little, mostly road trips. I worked long hours, ran a repair shop, kept our lives steady. But somewhere along the way, steady wasn't enough. Lana started dressing nicer, buying expensive clothes, always on her phone, laughing at things she wouldn't share. I noticed the signs, ignored the warning bells. The night at the casino wasn't the start of betrayal. It was the climax of years of slow erosion. When we arrived at Monroe's estate, it was like stepping into another dimension. Massive gates, sprawling lawns, oak-lined drives, fountains like I'd only seen in magazines. Inside, the house was cathedral-like, polished walnut floors, stone fireplaces, walls lined with art that could bankrupt a small town. Monroe offered me a meal, fed me bourbon, and then told me his story. He had built half of Nevada's luxury real estate, hotels, ranches, casinos. But wealth had cost him family. His only son died 15 years earlier, estranged. "I was a lousy father," he admitted. "Too busy, too proud, too late." Then he leaned in, voice quiet but firm. "I want to adopt you legally. Adult adoption. You'd take my name, my estate, my legacy. And Lana's betrayal shows me you have something rarer than money. Loyalty." I laughed. Thought it was a joke. But his seriousness, the calm authority, made me understand. This was real. 2 weeks later, Lana arrived at the estate gate. Perfect hair, makeup, fake tears. She wasn't there to reconcile. She had Googled Monroe Ashford. She knew what she was facing. "Al, we can fix this," she said, voice syrupy. Monroe stopped her cold. "Ma'am, you don't love this man. You love what you can drain from him." Then came the bomb. "Hal is my son now. Anything I leave him, you won't touch." Her face went pale. She threatened lawsuits. Threatened to expose a scam. Monroe's attorney, a sharp, uncompromising woman, cut her down with facts, evidence, witnesses. Lana stormed off. For good this time. The courtroom was tense. My estranged brother tried to intervene, claiming manipulation. Monroe took the stand. "Why adopt a 70-year-old man?" the judge asked. "Family isn't blood. Family is loyalty." "Hal proved it," Monroe said. The judge didn't hesitate. Adoption granted. I realized then that in my lifetime, I had never felt prouder to be someone's son. Last month, I went back to Silver Horseshoe Casino. Same parking lot. Cold rain. And I saw him, a man in his 50s, abandoned, humiliated. I walked up, cane in hand, Monroe's cane. "Son, you look like your life just fell apart," I said. I handed him my card. "Call me. Tonight. Not tomorrow." Sometimes, the worst betrayal is just the beginning of the greatest blessing. Rain still drizzled over the casino parking lot. I stood there, shivering, heart pounding. And that's when the man with the patch, the one-eyed stranger, appeared like he'd stepped out of a dream. "Son," he said, voice soft but cutting through the chill. "Life isn't over for you. Not yet." He introduced himself fully. Monroe Ashford, Nevada real estate magnate, philanthropist, and man with regrets deeper than any river. He explained that he'd lost his only son years ago and never found anyone worthy of the inheritance and love he had to give, until he saw me, abandoned, humiliated, and yet still standing. The proposition was wild, but I had nothing left to lose. "You'll be my son," he whispered, legally, officially. "Learn from me, grow with me, and in return, I'll show you a life worth living." The Lincoln's engine rumbled. The city lights blurred through rain-slick streets. I felt like I was crossing into a new world. Monroe's estate wasn't just big, it was monumental. Marble floors, endless corridors, rooms I couldn't even name, walls lined with art that could make a museum curator blush. He didn't just teach business. He taught respect, strategy, and legacy. "It's not about money," he said one evening, as we watched the Nevada sunset over his sprawling estate. "It's about people, understanding them, valuing them, knowing their worth. That's how you build more than wealth. You build respect." We spent mornings walking the lakefront, afternoons in his office, evenings by the fire. His lessons were subtle: patience, observation, humility. For the first time in decades, I felt someone believed in me. Weeks had passed in Monroe Ashford's estate. I was learning, observing, growing. But then, one morning, an envelope arrived, thick, sealed with an embossed monogram. My heart sank. It was from Lana, my ex-wife, and not just any letter. Inside, she confessed her affair, her disdain for the life we'd built, and her fear that she had miscalculated my worth. "Al, you don't understand what you're giving up," she wrote, words dripping with a mix of venom and regret. I held the letter, realizing for the first time that pain can become power when handled wisely. Monroe noticed my hesitation. "Some people live in the past. You live in the present. Power isn't revenge, it's control over yourself," he said. That day, I realized the true inheritance Monroe had given me was perspective, strength, and dignity. Monroe's mentorship intensified. He didn't just teach how to run a company. He taught me human psychology, negotiation, and loyalty. Never underestimate what desperation can drive a person to do, he told me one afternoon as we reviewed property acquisition contracts. And never overestimate what fear can make them give up. I started seeing the world through his eyes. People weren't just clients. They were puzzles, stories, motives waiting to be understood. And in every deal, there was a human factor, a lesson waiting to be learned. It was grueling, yet exhilarating. By now, I understood why Monroe had succeeded where others failed. He saw the invisible strings behind every interaction. Then, the inevitable happened. Lana showed up at the estate, perfectly groomed, high heels clicking against the marble floors, eyes scanning for weakness. Hal, I need to talk. It's not too late, she pleaded. I didn't respond immediately. Monroe stepped forward, calm, commanding. She's here for what she lost, not for you. Stand firm, son. Your life isn't a stage for her drama. Her attempts to manipulate, charm, and frighten were relentless. Threats, emotional blackmail, even hints of lawsuits. But Monroe had anticipated everything. By the end, Lana's fury had turned into impotent frustration. Lesson learned. True power isn't revenge, it's being untouchable. The adoption process was challenged by my estranged brother, Daniel, claiming manipulation. The courtroom was tense, the air thick with expectation. Monroe, always composed, testified with the authority of a man who had built an empire from nothing. Family isn't always defined by blood. Loyalty, respect, and love create bonds stronger than DNA, he declared. The judge, after hours of arguments and evidence, ruled in our favor. I was now legally and fully Monroe Ashford's son. I felt the weight of the world lift off my shoulders. 38 years of humiliation, betrayal, and loneliness faded into something new. Opportunity, respect, and a second chance at life. With the adoption finalized, Monroe's teachings became real-life practice. I was introduced to his inner circle, CFOs, real estate managers, and longtime associates. Some skeptical, others impressed, but all were eventually won over by Monroe's confidence in me. Every morning was a lesson in leadership, strategy, and patience. Evenings were for reflection, by the fire, where he would ask, "Hal, what does your heart want? What will make you proud?" For the first time, I realized success isn't just measured in dollars. It's measured in legacy, respect, and self-worth. 3 years later, Monroe passed peacefully. His final words were simple, yet powerful. "Thank you, son, for giving me life again." I inherited more than his wealth. I inherited his philosophy, his respect for loyalty, and his belief that a man's worth is measured by how he treats others. I sold some of his businesses, but kept the estate. I created a foundation for the abandoned, betrayed, or overlooked, a living tribute to the man who changed my life. Returning to that casino parking lot months later, I saw a man standing. Alone, abandoned, lost. I walked up to him, echoing Monroe's words. "Life isn't over for you. Not yet. Let me help you find your way." Because sometimes, the worst betrayal or loss is just the beginning of a new chapter. One stranger's kindness can change a lifetime. Life at the Ashford estate felt surreal. Yet, Monroe warned me, "Son, comfort is the first enemy of growth. Expect challenges from outside and within." A major property deal came up in Las Vegas, a risky acquisition worth millions. I was tasked to lead negotiations for the first time. My hands shook, heart raced, but Monroe simply smiled. "Trust what I taught you. Your honesty is your strength." By the end, we secured the deal, earning the respect of skeptical partners. For the first time, I felt truly capable. During a charity gala, I met Evelyn Harper, a retired lawyer who had worked with Monroe decades ago. Sharp, witty, and full of insight, she became my mentor in legal affairs and estate management. "Hal, you need to protect what's yours. Knowledge is power," she advised. Her lessons went beyond law. They were about reading people, spotting deception, and navigating complex social dynamics. I realized Monroe's empire was as much about people as it was about properties. Even with the adoption finalized, Lana didn't quit. She tried public smears, contacting old acquaintances, and even social media attacks. Monroe laughed quietly as he watched me fume. "Son, let her rage. Anger is loud but powerless. We act, she reacts." And he was right. With careful strategy, every one of her attempts backfired. By the end of the month, she was isolated, her credibility destroyed. Inspired by Monroe's teachings, I launched the Ashford Initiative, a foundation for abandoned and betrayed individuals. First beneficiaries were elderly widowers, young single parents, and people left destitute by broken relationships. Monroe watched proudly as I distributed scholarships, emergency funds, and mentorship opportunities. "You see how," he said, "true wealth is the difference you make in someone else's life." One of Monroe's trusted executives tried to undermine me, questioning my legitimacy and decisions. The boardroom grew tense. I remembered Monroe's words, "Calm, Precise, fair. Let truth guide your actions. I addressed the issue directly, presented facts, and acted with patience and authority. Within a week, the executive not only apologized but became one of my strongest allies. I realized leadership isn't about dominance. It's about earned respect. Late one night, sitting by the lake, I reflected on the past 5 years, 38 years of neglect, betrayal, and loneliness, then the miraculous encounter with Monroe. If I had given up, I whispered to the stars, I wouldn't be here now. I understood life's cruel irony. Sometimes, the worst moments open the door to unimaginable opportunities. Lana, desperate, made one last attempt. She hired private investigators to dig into the estate and find dirt. I simply smiled. Monroe's team had anticipated every move. Every investigation hit dead ends. By now, Lana was exhausted, bitter, and defeated. She realized she had lost not just me, but the life she thought she could manipulate. Monroe called me into his study, the fire casting shadows across the grand room. "Hal," he said, "I've taught you wealth, power, strategy, but the most important lesson is this: dignity, patience, and integrity. They outlast money, revenge, and anger." I nodded, understanding now that everything we had gone through, the betrayal, the hardships, the court battles, had prepared me to be a man worthy of this legacy. Monroe passed peacefully in his sleep, leaving me his estate, fortune, and most importantly, his wisdom. I continued his work, expanding the foundation, mentoring others, and living a life filled with purpose, dignity, and compassion. Returning to that fateful casino parking lot, I saw someone standing alone, abandoned, confused, the same way I once was. I approached him slowly. "Life isn't over for you. Not yet. Let me help you find your way." Because sometimes, the worst betrayal becomes the start of the greatest blessing. Mystery and revenge isn't just stories. It's about uncovering truth, witnessing justice, and understanding that sometimes, a stranger can change everything. Thank you for sticking with me through this unbelievable story. If you felt the twists, the betrayal, the shock, and most importantly, the lessons of loyalty, courage, and second chances, then hit that subscribe button and join the family here at Mystery and Revenge. Don't forget to like this video if it moved you, and share it with someone who needs to hear that sometimes, the worst moments can turn into the greatest opportunities. And hey, turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that uncovers the secrets, the mysteries, and the revenge you won't